We start with Adrian Fontes, the former Democratic Maricopa County recorder, now running for Secretary of State. He'll face House Democratic leader Reginald Boulding of Levine in the Democratic primary next August. I expect to have more conversations with Boulding, Fontes, and other candidates as the election nears. Adrian Fontes, welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having me back, Ron.
Good to see you. Let's share with viewers the latest news on Senate Republicans' election review. The Arizona Republic reported that the Cyber Ninjas' hand recount of Maricopa County's 2020 ballots was off by about 312,000 ballots. The spokesman for the partisan audit, former Republican Secretary of State Ken Bennett, will hold town hall meetings around the state starting this week on what happened at the election review. And Bennett revealed that Cyber Ninjas has yet to release its final report on the review. So hold your fire, he says. And we were all told the final report was delivered 4 weeks ago. Adrian Fontes, your reaction to all of that?
Well, I think it's interesting. They found a way to extend the grift. They figured out how to capture the attention of the population and the media to continue to fundraise so that they can fund their radical agenda of really destroying our election systems and the confidence in those systems. This is, after all, just an exercise in the pushing of neo-authoritarianism and making sure that that one sore loser eventually becomes an authoritarian dictator. I mean, that's what this is. This is a coordinated effort to undermine American confidence in our own democratic process, our own elections. It's vile, it's horrifying, and they're just raising more money. So keep those reports coming and keep that money flowing into this grift.
So a Secretary of State has a role to play in what you've just described and stopping it, as I said at the top of the show. Many politicians and many voters have no idea what the Secretary of State does, especially in the environment we're in right now. What's the job description?
Well, the Secretary of State is the chief election regulator in the state. The Secretary doesn't run elections. They regulate elections. The counties run elections, county recorders, county election departments, boards of supervisors, and so forth. The regulation requires the secretary to test machines, to certify elections, and to make sure the rules are followed across all of Arizona. But that's not all the secretary does. The secretary is also the keeper of the seal of the state of Arizona, makes sure that the state archives and libraries are up to date, does a whole lot of stuff for businesses, and including making sure the registry of notaries public is up to date. And one of my most favorite functions of the Secretary's office is to keep the registry of charities for veterans. Being an old Marine myself, that's something that's near and dear to my heart.
So the question I have for all candidates, and especially given what you said a few minutes ago, is how would you help harden our elections from these kinds of attacks? And by harden, I don't mean seal them up and hide them from view, but perhaps make them more transparent, push for more laws to help people understand and to make them work better.
Well, we're going to do across the state what we did in Maricopa County. We're going to make a statewide ballot tracking system, just like we started implementing in Pima County when I was the chief deputy recorder down there for several months. So that folks can get live notifications of when their ballot is coming to them in the mail and when it's been returned to the election department in the mail. We're going to make sure that websites like BeBallotReady.vote, which has really simplified the process and made information easy to find for Maricopa County voters, we're going to make sure that that type of framework is ready statewide. And we're going to do statewide what we did in Maricopa County with our national award-winning roundtable project to reach out to traditionally underserved communities to make sure that all of our citizens across the entire state have the information that they need to make sure to cast their ballot. Because our democracy is most strong in support of this republic when all eligible citizens are voting, when they have the information that they need, and when we speak the truth to folks and just let them know how it works and let them vote for who they want to. But we got to make sure that we do it in a way that includes all eligible citizens and make sure that all of those valid ballots are tabulated accurately.
If elected, you would be the one to certify, one of the elected officials to certify the 2024 elections. How concerned are you that certification might be challenged in 2022 after that election or in 2024?
Well, I'm very concerned. I mean, we've got a small portion of the other political party that just cannot get past the idea that their dear leader lost an election. And they've turned our election systems on their heads and embarrassed the state because he can't take a loss. And we've also got one person running for Secretary of State on the other side who I would dare say won't certify a perfectly good election if his Lord and Master is not the winner. That is dangerous. It's not just un-American, it's anti-American. And it's the kind of neo-authoritarianism that we've got to fight really hard against. As Secretary of State, I will certify a well-run election if all of the facts come to me and they are all in order in each of the 15 counties. And we'll pass that up the chain to make sure that American voices are heard appropriately and that our elections stand every test, as Maricopa County's election has.
You spoke earlier that the Secretary of State's job, one part of that job, is to make sure the rules are followed. You have a reputation in some quarters as a freelancer who might not follow the rules. And you know I'm talking about the March 2020 Democratic presidential primary. You decided on your own and against the legal advice of the Secretary of State and the Attorney General to rewrite voting rules. Yes, it was in the middle of a pandemic. Yes, you could argue some measures were needed, but you went against legal advice. Is that something you would do again as Secretary of State?
Well, Bram, I appreciate your mischaracterization of what I did because that's part of the narrative. In reality, what we did was not prohibited by law. And had the Attorney General not dismissed the case before we actually had a hearing, we would have been able to make that argument, and I think we would have won. However, legal maneuverings being what they are, we never got a chance to actually make the argument and show that in these emergency circumstances, making sure that we kept our voters safe during the inception of a global pandemic when other states were canceling their primaries would have been an argument I would have been very proud to make. And quite frankly, Bram, had we had the opportunity, I think we would have won. So I can appreciate the way you're framing that question. It's wrong. And I think we were standing on solid legal ground when we did what we did. Well,
I would just say I've read all the reports from back then, and a judge blocked the plan. Again, you had the Secretary of State saying your plan was illegal, and so did the Attorney General. Is the fact that something is not in the law a reason to do it?
Well, Bram, if you want to get technical about
it,
they were giving opinions, and the court is the final arbiter of these things. And again, we never had a chance to make an argument, and the injunction was made without a hearing. We weren't even in the court's chambers when the injunction was issued. It was just the Attorney General's lawyers alone who got that done. And it doesn't matter what anybody's opinion is. At the end of the day, the position that I took was a pro-voter position. It wasn't a pro-Attorney General or pro-Secretary of State position. It was something that would have allowed our voters to stay safe during the global pandemic, to make sure that they had their fundamental rights upheld. And sometimes, you know just as well as I do, Bram, laws are written to prevent voters from voting. That's the kind of voter suppression stuff we're seeing all over Arizona and all over the United States. I will always fight against that sort of thing in the direction of the voter and the voter's rights. Their opinion is paramount, regardless of who they vote for, and that's what I will continue to fight for.
Okay, let's end with this question, yes or no. Would you do that again, what you did in March of 2020? Yes or no?
If it's to the benefit of our voters, absolutely.
All right, got to end it there. Adrian Fontes, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Bram. Have a great one.
You too.